Hello, everybody. It's Karen. It is another opportunity to tell you about the Park City real estate market because you know what? It is a new month. It is Monday. It is October 3rd. It's the middle of the afternoon, but figured I would go live now and tell you a little bit about the Park City market. First and foremost, I think what's really important to mention during these videos is that you are probably hearing as a consumer, you're probably hearing a lot of news about the real estate market. Not a day goes by that I don't hear about the real estate market. And there are headlines that are causing a lot of people to be afraid to make decisions when it comes to buying or selling real estate. What I want to encourage anybody who's thinking about real estate, which I think anybody who has a roof over their head is concerned, right? We all have our concerns. Did my value go up? Will the prices come down enough? At the end of the day, the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to turn off that news, or at least to find a way to filter it, because what you're hearing on the national news about the market is really not relevant for your specific market. A lot of these headlines are talking about a recession and inflation and what that means to you. And I urge you today in this new month and this new quarter to think about, what does inflation mean to you? I know here in Park City, Utah, I am seeing the gas prices come down pretty drastically from where they were a month ago. To me, that is a great sign. We are moving in the right direction. I am now spending less on gas than I was before. Now, obviously, in other markets, I recently saw an agent friend of mine who's in Reno, Nevada, and the gas prices there were probably about $2 more than they are in Park City. And we are about 500 miles from each other. So in every market, it is a very different story. So when you are reading some of these market reports, I encourage you to be looking out for those specifics about your specific market. For those of you that are watching this, I'd love to know where you're watching from. So leave a comment. Obviously, feel free to share this, leave a little heart so I know that you're watching. Leave a question if you have questions about your specific market. I would just love to know where my listeners are. So for today, knowing that we just finished September, we haven't quite done all the reports for the quarter yet, but I have enough to share with you about the market here in Park City for the last month. So the first thing I want to do, hey, Los Angeles, thanks for tuning in. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to share some stats with you about the Park City market. And I pulled this map because I want to show you just how normal the market was before COVID. Obviously, this goes back quite a bit, several years, which I think is really important for you to see. So this actually, if you can't see it, it goes all the way back to 2014. And we are seeing these charts go at a pretty regular pace. Then we see the spike of 2020. So this exact spike is from December of 2020. And then we can see that the market is slowly coming back down to a normal level. So this is the number of closed sales for September. I'm very much looking at this as on a monthly basis, but also on a yearly basis. So what we can see here is that it is up 30.4% from the prior period. So that's our most recent month, and down 32% from last year. So obviously we know that there are a lot of factors that went into dictating this exact stat. And a lot of that has to do with inflation and with interest rates. Okay, here in Park City, what I will share with you is that I think the stat is actually about 50%. So about 50% of our buyers are paying cash. So when you're in a market, if you are in a market where there's a lot of second homes and or cash buyers, you have to remember that these cash buyers are not sensitive to those interest rates. So again, this is a national story about interest rates. Actually, it's a global story because interest rates are impacting markets all over the world. But specifically here in Park City, where we do have a huge number of people paying cash, if anything, they are more incentivized to buy now than they maybe were, because the prices might be adjusting a little bit. And they're, they have money. Somebody recently said to me, when somebody has $100 million, does it really matter what the interest rate is? Not really. Will they pay 10 million or will they pay 9? Most likely they'll pay either one. So that's a great stat that I just wanted to share with you. Another stat, and this comes directly from the Park City Board of Realtors. Let's look at the average sold price. I think that this is also a very interesting stat. I actually pulled it just a couple seconds ago, just to compare 2021 to 2022. Sorry, we're gonna have to go in a little bit more. Let's try that again. Okay, so right here is where we were in September of 2021, where the average sold price was 3.323 million, as opposed to today, this is single family homes, by the way, is 3.35. So we're really not that different. So if you're waiting for prices to come down, you'll see that this was kind of the window of opportunity. But we are really not that different from where we were a year ago. And even then, you can see where prices were. Now, we know that this is during COVID, but we can see that the prices have been coming up at a gradual pace. Again, this is something that we predict will continue over the next year or so. Even with interest rates, even with inventory, we still feel that the prices are really not changing all that much. If you see a sudden jump in pricing, especially when it comes to the average, what we know is that the average is the total, all those sales, which we looked at the numbers before, the closed sales is 103 units. Now, obviously one sale can, a 25 to $40 million sale can move that number around. So we really have to look at this. We have to go back to, I think, before the COVID days to really see how steady things were. But remember, in any market, and this is the kind of the headline that we're not seeing, is that headline specific to one particular market. So for instance, in the Colony here in Park City, we have sales that are selling for 29 million, 40 million, and those numbers go right into the pot when it comes to the overall Park City and Snyderville Basin numbers. And we could have a really big development launch or a small development launch, and they could all close during the same quarter, and that could also dictate the numbers. So that's also really important to know. So the last chart that I want to share with you, let's go back into our charts. Let's see which one we should do. Percent of list price received. I think that this is the one that says, how big of a discount am I going to get? Now, we all know, I'm going to get back on camera for this one, because the caveat here is, people say prices are going to come down, prices are coming down, prices are coming down. The reality is, what are they coming down from? That's the question that you should be asking. Are they coming down from a price that was realistic and reasonable to begin with? Or were there sellers who were saying, oh, I'm just going to test the market because this is what it sold for. Now I can expect this. So this is that, like, oh gosh, this is the story that nobody's really telling, is where are they starting to begin with? So when we talk about the list, the percent of list price received, I'm just going to show you this as a really big picture, but let's go back all the way to 2014 to the present. You could see that these numbers are fairly consistent. If you look across the board, the stats are pretty consistent. Then we hit, obviously, COVID, where they were going up to well over 100 to plus 100. Here we go. And condos and townhouses were at 102%, and that's from February of this year. And then where we are today, let's see, single family homes, 97.1%. Now let's bring this into perspective and just look at the most recent year. So here is single family homes, September 2021, 97.9%, 97.9, and now we're at 97.1. Is that a big number? Is that a little number? I don't think that that's a huge margin right there. That is probably the equivalent of one or two houses that, again, may have been priced a little high to begin with. At the end of the day, we are seeing that when a seller lists their house, now what that stat does not show is how much the asking price has changed. So maybe a home that in February of 2022, before the rates went crazy, might have been 2 million. Now it should be listed at maybe 1.9. And if they listed it at 1.9, I believe that they have a better shot at getting 1.9 or above versus in February, they might have gotten that 2 million, 2.2, maybe at ask or slightly above. So if you are considering buying in this market in general, one of my colleagues once said to me, there is never a bad time to buy, just a bad time to sell. If you bought in the last 5 or so years, the equity that you have built up in your home is insane. It is a wild number. Here in Park City, I know people who got tax assessments where their value went up 35% in the last 2 years. 35%, when the average increase is 6 to 8% a year. So 35%, so that's like double what it should be. So if you have that equity, you've got basically two options here. Number one, you can sell, get out at more than you would have had you gotten out last year. You have more equity, and let's face it, that purchase power that you have now, that money that you have now that you could spend once you sell, you actually have more buying power. You might think that the interest rates are impacting your buying power, and they are. In fact, I was recently at a conference where Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, gave us a really great example. So $1 million at a 4.2% interest rate is about $4,200 a month, and $4,200 a month is the overall payment, and $1 million with a 6% interest rate is actually a $2,000 difference. $2,000 difference. That is a huge difference. However, we can make the numbers work. I promise you that there are ways, and I'm not going to go into all the ways on this video, but I recently was speaking with a couple of mortgage brokers, in particular one who is a credit union. They have their own money, which I think is great. And they were actually able to offer a client of mine a rate of 4.5% for a 6-1 ARM, which I think is phenomenal, especially if you do not plan on carrying this debt for a long time. For many people, a 30-year fixed rate does not make sense because they likely won't hold on to it for 30 years. So I encourage you to get really creative. One of those other ways, and then I'll wrap this up, is to buy down the rate. So let's say that a home is listed at $1 million and you really only want to pay $925. Well, instead of dropping the price to $925, what you do is you get a credit from the seller for that $75,000. That credit goes towards paying down the rate, which could bring your, let's say, 6 to 6.5% rate down to, let's say, 5%. So right then and there, you can buy down the rate. So that's a little bit, that's a few examples of getting creative with your financing and still being able to buy in this market, which I feel, let's go back 8 months ago, even 10 months ago. Had you bought back then, you could have bought, closed, and flipped it and made some money. That kind of flip over that short amount of time is not really common. But with so much uncertainty going on in the world right now, what we do know, and in Park City in particular, is that the values in Park City continue to go up. Year over year, month over month, they might change a little bit. We have seasonality, we have, politics, we have things that, that impact the desirability of Park City in general. But if you plan on holding on to this home, what I can tell you based on these stats is year over year, and the trend continues to stay consistent. We're right in it right now, right? Like we're right at that transitional moment right now. Probably by the beginning of Q of 2023, we will know where we stand with really what is our first full year outside of this COVID, rush, if you will, frenzy. We are now more in a time where people are making decisions that they're actually thinking through. They have a little bit more time to decide whether they want to buy or not and what they want to buy. And obviously we have a very much shifting landscape across the board with interest rates, the economy, and the world, when it comes to the war. And now as it relates to Florida and things that are happening down there, and obviously resources. So if you have any questions about the market, please feel free to reach out. I am always here to answer them. And again, I would love to hear where you're watching from. So leave a little comment down below, leave a heart, share this with somebody that might find it helpful. And again, if you've got any questions, I'm here to help. Thanks so much and have a great day. We'll see you next week.